The dishwasher no one believed in just proved them all wrong at midnight. It was a cold, eerie night when the small kitchen in the old Adams house came alive with a hum that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who dared to listen. The kind of hum that hinted at secrets lurking in the shadows. As the clock struck midnight, all eyes were on the dishwasher. Yes, that old, battered piece of machinery everyone in town swore was haunted. They said it was cursed to wash dishes endlessly, never to find solace until it had scrubbed every single plate within reach. Most folks dismissed those stories as nonsense, a mix of small-town legends and bored imaginations. But tonight, the atmosphere felt tense, shifting as if it bore witness to something extraordinary. When it started to whirl and clang, the sound echoing like a distant ghost, you could see the disbelief etched on the faces of those who had gathered around. Sparkling silverware danced as if possessed, and the bubbles in the suds glistened like a sinister fairy tale gone wrong. A figure, old Mrs. Thompson, clasped her hands together so tightly that her knuckles turned white as she muttered, "I always knew there was something special about that machine." Her voice quivered, an undertone of fear layered with excitement. The lights flickered, and an out-of-place chill swept through the room, gripping everyone's chests. They could hardly breathe, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Suddenly, the dishwasher sputtered. It let out a groan, deep and guttural like a beast awakening from slumber. Someone gasped, others exchanged nervous glances. Would it really reveal its secrets tonight, or was this just another cruel joke from the universe? The clock ticked forward, each second dragging into eternity, while the crowd was buzzing with whispers. What was happening? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then, just as doubts started to creep back in, the dishwasher let out a thunderous crash, the door flinging open as a plume of mist seeped out, forming swirling patterns in the dim light. Gasps erupted across the room, faces pale with the thrill of fear and fascination. What were they witnessing? The frothy waves ebbed and surged, promising revelations that no one was ready for. It was no ordinary household appliance anymore, it was alive, thrumming with an unseen power, as though it were a vessel for something unfathomable, and from within that cloud of steam, a collection of shimmering dishes floated up, glowing as if they were made of starlight, defying gravity in ways that made everyone question their own reality. Who could have imagined such chaos would rise from something deemed useless? As the last plate vanished into thin air, a single sparkling glass fell from the air, landing perfectly on the floor. Silence enveloped the room, broken only by a single whisper, "What's next?" It hung there like bait, calling all curious souls to dive deeper into a mystery that had only just begun. The silence shattered like glass. A low murmur spread through the crowd, rippling with a mix of fear and awe. What just happened? Someone finally managed to gasp, their voice trembling. The air felt electric, charged with unexplainable energy that made the hair on everyone's arms stand on end. Mrs. Thompson stepped forward, eyes wide and sparkling with enthusiasm. This is beyond anything we imagined." She reached for the mist, her fingers brushing against the ethereal tendrils that seemed to dance away at her touch. Gasps rang out as people instinctively took a step back, but there was an undeniable pull toward the spectral light. Suddenly, from the depths of the fog, a shadow loomed. It loomed large and ominous, far beyond mere reflections of cutlery or glassware. A figure, indistinct yet chilling, began to materialize from the swirling mist. Everyone froze, stricken with both terror and curiosity. Who or what was manifesting in their midst? The lights flickered once again, this time plunging the room into brief darkness, only to return, illuminating the form that was now slowly taking shape. A ghostly apparition, clad in old-fashioned garb, looked out over the crowd with hollow eyes that seemed to hold centuries of untold stories. Murmurs turned into screams as a few bold souls stepped closer, their eyes locked onto the specter. "It's real!" someone shouted. "This is real!" They couldn't believe it. The dishwasher had not only come to life but was summoning spirits from beyond. A chilling wind swept through the kitchen, making the curtains flutter violently against the windows, and the figure pointed directly at Mrs. Thompson. "We should go!" Dimitri yelled, clutching his partner's arm. Panic ricocheted around the crowd. But Mrs. Thompson remained rooted, her expression a cocktail of excitement and fear, shaking her head. "No. Wait. We need to understand what it wants." The ghostly figure's jaw opened, and instead of words, a haunting melody poured out. It echoed through the kitchen like a forgotten lullaby, laced with melancholy that resonated deeply within each heart present. It was a sound that beckoned memories long buried, stirring emotions everyone had tucked away. It felt strangely comforting somehow, yet utterly unnerving. As the last note lingered in the air, the apparition dissipated into shimmering specks that floated down to the ground like lost stars. The room stilled, but the atmosphere felt forever altered. What had they just witnessed? Questions spiraled, and the crowd began to buzz with disbelief and wonder. "What do we do now?" someone murmured, eyes darting around nervously. Dimitri, visibly shaking, pointed at the dishwasher. "Should we even touch it again? I mean, what if it calls on something else? Maybe we unleash more?" challenged another, uncertainty dousing their voice. Each person exchanged worried glances, themselves grappling with a gnawing fear that they might have awakened something best left undisturbed. Then, as if in answer, the dishwasher roared back to life. The clattering grew louder, chanting out the very essence of the uncertain void they all held within. No one had expected another show, but here they were, heart rates elevated, uncertainty spilling over. Mrs. Thompson, gathering her courage, took a step forward. "We can't turn back now. There's too much at stake." With bated breath, the onlookers held their ground, ready to uncover whatever otherworldly secrets lay waiting for them. But before they could fully absorb the moment, the dishwasher's door swung open again, revealing not just steam, but flashes of fleeting images. Shadows danced once more at the edge of reason, blending past with present in a whirl of light. What new mysteries awaited them? The air felt thick with tension as the dishwasher continued its eerie symphony. The crowd's collective breath held steady, eyes glued to the door, wide open, curiosity mingling with dread. What awaited them inside? Whispers crept through the ranks like shadows, igniting a fire in their minds, filling them with swirling questions. Mrs. Thompson braced herself, her heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the washing machine's chaotic roar. As the swirling mist poured from the dishwasher, images glittered and warped before their eyes. Faces appeared, people long gone, ancestors perhaps, their eyes hollow and pleading. The weight of history pressed down on the room, each reflection stirring buried emotions that threatened to roar into chaos. "Turn it off!" yelled Dimitri, his voice barely breaking through the mounting noise, shock written across his face. "We have to close it." But Mrs. Thompson raised her hand. "Wait. Are you seeing this?" she replied, her voice vibrating with wonder. "We can't just walk away from this. Imagine the stories they could tell. Or the dangers." Another voice shot back. The crowd began to stir, unease settling like a thick cloud over the kitchen. Someone gasped, pointing as the images began to shift. Despair mingled with echoes of joy, a child laughing, a woman crying, a man shouting in anger. It was a tapestry of life and death. The cabinet doors creaked open, hinges protesting against their unnatural motions. Suddenly, a gust of wind surged through, sending the faint outline of glimmering memories spilling into the air, seeking form. The spirit from before flickered to life once more, this time more solid, more defined. Its eyes burned through the fog, locking onto Mrs. Thompson's with a gaze that turned her blood to ice. "Find it," came the ghostly whisper, echoing in 14 different voices yet singular in urgency. "Find what?" Mrs. Thompson breathed, her voice tightening in her throat. The apparition stretched a spectral arm forward, beckoning her, the call clear yet vague. The crowd, entranced by the unfolding scene, edged closer, almost daring the unknown. They were hanging by threads, caught between thrill and horror, the stakes rising higher with every moment. Maybe it's treasure. Someone ventured, incredulous but intrigued. Another replied, or a curse. Before they could debate further, the dishwasher began to whir gently, and from within, an object slowly emerged, suspended in the mist like an offered gift. A light it glinted, illuminating the room with an unworldly glow. Heart rates quickened, breaths caught in throats like fish out of water. Then, with a sudden sputter, the spectral hand withdrew, and the object dropped, crashing into the kitchen floor. It shattered, sending shards of glass spattering everywhere, each piece catching the light and reflecting it wildly, almost like a burst of stars falling from above. In that moment of chaos, a chilling laugh echoed within the confines of the kitchen, unsettling and playful. The sereneness of the moment was blown away like dust, leaving in its wake a ghost of laughter that seemed to echo from beyond the grave. Mrs. Thompson knelt beside the fragments, her heart racing. Amongst the wreckage, a piece gleamed brighter than the others, a medallion encrusted with an intricate design unfamiliar yet alluring. "What have we done?" she whispered, her voice unnervingly small as she picked it up. Just then, the lights flickered once more, plunging them into darkness. A moment of panic raced through the crowd, but it was cut short when a voice clearer than glass but as cold as death broke through the shadows. "You've set it free." An electric silence enveloped them, tightening the night as fear swelled like an uncontainable wave. What had they awakened? As the room hung in suspense, a distant howl pierced through the terror, leaving them breathless. What more lay in wait beneath the surface of their decision? The answers were just beginning to unfurl. The air hung heavy as the darkness pressed around them. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering in the brief moments of light that fought to break through. Heartbeats echoed in the sudden stillness, a collective rhythm of dread that resonated with each breath. "Mrs. Thompson!" Dimitri exclaimed, his voice strained. "What did you find? We need to get out of here." He edged backward, eyes darting to the door, where uncertainty and safety stood at odds. But Mrs. Thompson held the medallion tightly, its smooth surface seeming to pulse with energy, almost as if it were a living entity. "There is something important about this," she insisted, a tremor in her voice. She could feel the weight of the crowd pressing closer, a mix of fear and fascination. "You can't seriously think it's safe?" shouted one woman who was clutching her partner's hand, knuckles white. "What if it's cursed? We shouldn't tempt fate." Fighting against the creeping fear, Mrs. Thompson steadied herself, trying to grasp the threads of the ghostly warning that had echoed. The lights flickered again, plunging them into a heartbeat of darkness before illuminating the room. She felt a strange compulsion. There had to be an answer here, buried under the shards of history represented by darker memories. The spectral figure materialized once more amidst the chaos, resolving from thin air like smoke solidifying. Its voice, a cacophony of whispers, surrounded them. "You've awakened the past and its price." Goosebumps skittered across her skin. The words sank in, almost drowning her in a swirling sea of foreboding. "What price?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, almost lost in the tension of the room. "Open the door to revelations or close it and forget," the spirit warned, its features contorting as if caught between anguish and freedom. It gestured to the shattered glass, shimmering remnants that seemed to absorb and reflect a light all their own. "Mrs. Thompson, please," Dimitri hissed, now practically standing outside the kitchen. "You can't let it keep talking. It's dangerous." But the allure of the medallion was grounding, a tether to curiosity that sparked a deeper need within her. If this ghost was intent on a message, how could she turn away from that? She had to know. "I'm not afraid," she declared, struggling to mask the tremor in her chest. There might be a reason it showed us these visions, these souls. As if triggered by her determination, the medallion flared in her clenched fist, sending an electric current up her arm. The room quaked, objects rattled, and with a sudden roar, light exploded from the pendant. The walls reverberated with a force unlike anything they had experienced. The kitchen transformed, swirling in an explosion of color, time blurring in front of them. Historical fragments merged with the present, laughter, screams, and whispers crashing against one another. Each memory captured like fireflies in the air, vibrant, desperate, and longing to be acknowledged. And then, the vision sharpened, revealing a tableau of fearsome figures, spirits entangled in chains, struggling against the weight of their pasts. They reached out to the group, spectral hands extended in desperate pleading. In that moment, Mrs. Thompson felt her heart catch, the chill rolled down her spine, surfacing terror mixed with urgency. "What do you want?" she shouted over the cacophony. As the spirits swirled, the answer came not in words but in an instinctual pull. The room held its breath. With each second, the tension crescendoed, echoes began to rise, shrieks of terror wailing alongside. The light dimmed, flickering to reveal a familiar face among them. Mrs. Thompson gasped, recognition dawning. "Mom." She barely whispered, heart racing in a surge of shattered memory and undeniable connection. But her mother's eyes were wide with fear, warnings imploring as if to say they were running out of time. Then everything stopped. Silence engulfed them, thick as fog. All eyes turned toward Mrs. Thompson. Would she engage with the past-forged inspectors, or shield them all from its awakening? A heartbeat later, the walls shuddered again as the shadows whispered louder, eager to reclaim what they had lost. Just then, something heavy fell, a thud breaking through the silence once more, and the night prepared to unveil itself. What lay next would decide their fate. The thud reverberated like a drum against the walls, echoing deep into the chamber of their fears. A chilling draft swept through the kitchen, making Mrs. Thompson's skin prick with ice. The room felt alive, trembling in anticipation of something darker, something hungry. What was that? A young man at the back whispered, his voice barely audible over the din of their racing hearts. The group shifted, wide eyes darting towards the sound, fear wrapped around them like a suffocating fog. Dmitri, edging further backward, clutched his phone tightly, the screen casting an anxious glow on his expression. "We have to get out now," he urged, desperation creeping into his words, but Mrs. Thompson couldn't move. She felt drawn into the chaotic tapestry unfurling before her. The medallion, still gripped in her palm, vibrated with an energy pulsing, like a heartbeat, her heartbeat. "Mom!" She choked, the word erupting from her throat. "What do you need me to do?" In response, the familiar figure flickered, her mother's face a mixture of fear and longing. It was as if she were trying to reach through a veil, desperate to pull her daughter back from the edge of darkness threatening to swallow them whole. The lights in the room flickered with each surge of the medallion's power, casting ghostly shapes on the walls, the dim glow framing her mother's ethereal form. The spirits around them swirled faster, their chains rattling like an approaching storm. The cacophony of voices grew louder, some pleading, others shrieking, each tone twisting a knife deeper into Mrs. Thompson's resolve. She felt suffocated by the weight of their past, their unfinished business intertwining with her own. "Leave while you still can." Her mother's voice broke through the clamor, sharp and clear. "You must break the cycle." "Cycle?" Mrs. Thompson echoed, panic tightening around her chest. "What cycle?" Suddenly, the vibrating medallion emitted a blinding light, illuminating the room with an unearthly glow. Distorted reflections danced across the glass shards scattered on the floor, mirroring moments past, pain, loss, love buried too deep. Then with a flick of her hand, the spirit pointed toward the door at the back of the kitchen, long closed and forgotten. "Open it!" the spectral voice urged, desperation spilling from its shrill tone. "The truth lies beyond." A shudder coursed through Mrs. Thompson, twisting the knot in her stomach tighter. Could she really confront whatever was hidden behind that door? If she opened it, would she unleash more sorrow? Could she save herself and the spirits trapped in torment? As if answering her thoughts, a piercing scream erupted from the crowd. A woman, a mother just like Mrs. Thompson, clutched her partner, eyes wild with disbelief and terror. It's coming. It's coming. With a sudden jolt, the shadows surged forward, swirling and crashing like waves threatening to engulf them. Mrs. Thompson felt the medallion pull her, a magnetic force urging her closer to the door. She hesitated, her heart racing. "Dimitri!" she shouted. "Hold them back while I find out." He nodded, panic visible in his features as he positioned himself protectively in front of the others. As she took a step toward the door, the air thickened, a feeling of ancient sorrows pressed down, suffocating, but illuminating. She reached out, fingers trembling, grasping the cold handle. "Whatever I find, I must face it," she muttered to herself, gripping the medallion tighter. With a swift motion, she turned the handle. In an instant, the door flew open with a creak that echoed ominously through the room. Darkness poured out like a living creature hungry for light. What awaited beyond that threshold? Would she find answers or deeper despair? The group held its breath, poised on a knife's edge, waiting for the revelation that could shatter everything once and for all. As the door swung wide, a chilling gust surged through the kitchen, slamming into Mrs. Thompson with a force that felt almost alive. The darkness spilled out, swirling into the room, twisting and contorting into shapes that clawed at the edges of her sanity. She couldn't see what lay beyond, but she could feel it, a suffocating presence that seemed to reach for her, begging her to step into its depths. "Dimitri! Back away," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Fear coursed through her as she felt the weight of the medallion, thrumming with urgency against her palm. The walls twisted, shadows taking shape like writhing serpents. "Get them out!" he shouted back, panic etched across his face as he wrestled with a ghostly figure pulling at the chain of its despair, desperately trying to hold it back. Mrs. Thompson's heart pounded in her chest. Her mother's ethereal form dangled before her, shimmering like an illusion caught in a storm. "Mom!" she cried again, now stepping forward, instinct pulling her closer to the abyss. The kitchen around her began to dim, the world outside fading into a soft whisper. Her every nerve tingled as the voices enveloped her, coaxing, demanding. "Open your heart to what you fear," her mother urged, her voice echoing like a drumbeat through the uncertainty. "Only then can the truth emerge." But what truth? And at what cost? The shadows pulsated, and in the sudden flickering of light, fleeting images flickered before her eyes. She saw herself as a child, laughing with her mother, then her mother lying in a pool of sorrow, the room flooded with tears and regrets. The weight of those memories crashed down on her, tightening around her throat. Could she really endure this? "Find your light," her mother insisted, nearly pleading. "Every heart has its shadow. Don't let it win." With every ounce of bravery she could muster, Mrs. Thompson stepped fully into the doorway. The darkness swirled around her, whispering secrets and truths, pulling her further into a realm where regret and despair coexisted. She could hear the gasps of her friends behind her. Dimitri's frantic shout melded with the echoes of those voices, a cacophony that made her head spin. Then, an unnerving silence swept in, blanketing everything. She was suspended in a void where time felt meaningless. Mrs. Thompson felt the cold kiss of fear snaking down her spine, but she held on to the medallion, letting its rhythm lead her. She drew in a deep breath, the taste of resolve igniting something within her. "Show me!" she shouted into the darkness, demanding an answer, demanding the truth that had eluded her for years. In response, shadows flickered, revealing twisted narratives of her family's past, moments of joy cloaked in heartache, decisions made under duress. And then there it was, a more profound revelation that sent her heart racing, a moment that froze her in place. What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling, as the reality of her lineage unfolded before her. The burden of the cycle wrapped tighter around her heart as she realized the fracture in her family's foundation. Before she could process the immensity of it, hands erupted from the darkness, icy fingers grasping at the edges of her reality. An otherworldly scream filled the air, and the figures of those spirits rose up, demanding her attention, fighting for their voices to be heard amidst the chaos. Mrs. Thompson felt herself slipping, the medallion's energy bursting forth. It was as if the very essence of her ancestors stood with her, a force of good and grief colliding, demanding release. And just as she thought she might yield to the darkness, something shifted, the shadows contorted and twisted, revealing an exit, a lighter path stretching beyond the chaos. In that instant, she realized the cycle didn't have to end in despair. "I can break this," she shouted, determination firing through her veins, pushing back against the shadows. But as she steeled herself to move forward, the darkness roared in protest. The door behind her slammed shut, sealing off her friends from this otherworld. "Face the shadows of your heart," her mother echoed faintly, fading into the mist. What would she choose? Would it be light or dark, resolution or denial? The choice hung vividly in the air, and as Mrs. Thompson took another unsteady step, the shadows loomed larger. "Stay or go," the whispers taunted, "but know this, the truth has teeth." The depths of the unknown opened wider. The medallion flickered, a last glimmer of hope amidst despair. What awaited her at the end of this twisted path? Would she emerge as savior or sacrifice? And just when she thought she knew the answer, the ground beneath her trembled, a warning rumble signaling that something far more dangerous was on the horizon. The tension crackled in the air like static before a storm, a heavy weight squeezing Mrs. Thompson's heart as she felt the ground shift beneath her. The shadows writhed, twisting into grotesque figures that leered at her. Panic clawed at her throat. "Stay strong," she whispered to herself, clinging to the medallion. It glowed faintly, a reminder of her resolve, a flicker of her mother's strength coursing through her. But the darkness roared back, hungry and relentless. In that moment of tumult, a sudden rush of wind swept through the doorway, carrying with it a sound like shattering glass. It resonated deeply, vibrating through her bones. The whispers morphed into a discordant symphony, each note piercing her mind further. "Face us, Mrs. Thompson. Face what you've buried." Memories flooded back, her mother's laughter, the warmth of her embrace, the pain of her loss. Each image was like a knife, twisting deeper, demanding to be acknowledged. "You can't ignore this," they screamed. "The truth awaits." Mrs. Thompson felt the weight of generations pressing down on her. "No." The word burst from her lips, but it came out weak, almost a plea. Suddenly, the mist thickened, wrapping around her like a serpent prepared to strike. Fear spiked and clawed at her insides. She could see one particular figure emerging from the haze, its eyes glimmering with malevolence. It looked like a twisted version of herself, shadowy and grotesque, embodying all her self-doubt and unconfessed fears. "No more," she declared, every ounce of courage rallying in her chest. "I want to be your prisoner." The figure laughed, a chilling, hollow sound that echoed from all corners. "You think you can break the cycle? You think you're stronger than the shadows of your heart? Join us, and you'll understand true power." Mrs. Thompson took a step back, feeling the darkness push against her soulful resolve. "The only power I acknowledge is in the light of truth." And as she uttered those words, a pulse rippled through the medallion, a warm golden light radiating outward, illuminating the dark abyss, shattering the hold the shadows had on her. The grotesque figure shrieked, its form beginning to dissipate under the vibrancy of her light. "Don't you see?" it howled in desperation, its voice splintering. "Without shadows, there can be no light. You will lose everything you love." The walls trembled, but Mrs. Thompson bolstered herself. "I will not lose myself to fear. My past does not dictate my future." Thousands of voices, her ancestors, rallied around her as she grasped the medallion tighter, willing every ounce of their energy into the light. And then, through the roiling darkness, something glimmered, a figure stepping forward, shades of soft lavender and blues touching the edges of her vision. It was her mother, radiating warmth, smiling softly as the shadows screamed in agony. "You have the strength, dear one. You are never alone." But just as hope swelled within her, the ground shook violently, and a fissure split open beneath her feet, threatening to pull her into the void. With a sudden surge, the shadows lashed out, trying to reclaim her. Dimitri's voice floated in from behind the closed door, a frantically torn plea echoing through the walls. "Mrs. Thompson. Come back. You don't have to face this alone." It pierced through her, grounding her again. Could she really face this alone? But didn't she just shed light on the darkness that clung to her heart? In that moment of clarity, she realized she held the power to reshape her fate. As she braced herself against the chasm, the whispering shadows grew desperate. "You can't escape us forever." But Mrs. Thompson would not back down. It was time to confront the legacy of fear. She spread her arms wide, embracing the challenge, the light flickering fiercely around her. "I choose light. I choose truth." The shadows froze for an agonizing heartbeat before surging forward, a dark wave crashing against her resolve. But before the darkness engulfed her, a blinding flash erupted from the medallion, knocking her backward with an electrifying pulse of energy. Suddenly, there was silence in that stark quiet. She felt not just the weight of what she defaced, but the weight of what was yet to come. This battle wasn't over. As shadows began to retract and reshape, a new figure emerged, pulling itself from the darkness, a dark reflection, yet this time, it held the key to all that was at stake. What did it want? And why did it seem so familiar? Mrs. Thompson felt terror take root once more, a feeling of inevitability creeping in, as the air shifted with a new presence, one she couldn't yet comprehend. She had crossed a threshold, but had she walked into salvation or something more sinister? The answer loomed just beyond the shadows, whispering her name. The blinding light flickered, illuminating the room in a mix of shadows and vibrant hues. Mrs. Thompson squinted against the onslaught of brightness, trying to make sense of the figure now striding closer. The familiarity sent a chill racing up her spine. "Mom." The breath escaped her lips before she could hold it back. The woman who emerged truly mirrored her mother, but was also something darker. Her eyes held a depth of sorrow that felt all too real. "You finally brought the fight to me," the figure said, her voice a haunting echo of affection and pain. "But you don't understand, dear one. The shadows aren't just darkness. They're a part of you." Each word tugged at the heartstrings Mrs. Thompson had fought so hard to mend. "No. You're not real. This is just a trick." But every instinct clung to the truth in those eyes, the pain they carried. It was her pain. "Do you really believe you can sever what is within you? What has shaped your very being?" The words twisted around her like the mist, heavy and suffocating. "I am the consequence of your belief in darkness." The shadows swirled tighter, their whispers swarming, trying to drown out her thoughts. "Let it in, Mrs. Thompson. You can't escape your fate." She staggered back, feeling the ground tremble beneath her feet. "I fought too hard to let you win." But the confidence in her voice faltered slightly, shaken by the intensity of emotional storms brewing inside of her. "Embrace what you fear. It is not a foe, but a path to healing." The figure urged, stepping closer, a ghostly light emanating from her being. "You can unearth your truth, but only if you allow the shadows to exist alongside the light." Each syllable weighed heavily, striking at Mrs. Thompson's core. "You can't mean that." "If I accept the darkness," her mother's apparition smiled gently, illuminating the darkened corners of the room. "You will know yourself fully. This is the sacrifice, my love. The complete understanding of who you truly are." The shadows hissed, an uproar of rage punctuating the air. "Lies. If you give in, you'll be devoured. You'll lose everything." But the intensity of her mother's light seemed to weaken the shadows, forces pulling back in fear of what might emerge from the depths of Mrs. Thompson's heart. "Do I lose everything, or do I finally gain myself?" she whispered. "What legacy do you wish to carry forth?" The apparition's voice softened, drawing her in. "The strength that dwells like roots intertwined with your spirit, or the weight of hidden grief?" As the room shifted again, everything felt like it was teetering on the brink. There was no escape into silence anymore. She longed for the comfort of simplicity, the easy familiarity of avoidance. But something deep within urged her to continue. The medallion pulsed brightly, reflecting her internal struggle. Mom, the word trembled, floating between hope and fear. Show me. In an instant, the shadows roared back in full force, coiling around Mrs. Thompson with a frenzied passion. The air around her crackled dangerously. No. You cannot turn back now. And yet, as she stood there on the precipice of darkness and light, she felt the tether of her mother's love radiating through her. I choose truth. With those words, she plunged into the depths, the shadows rushing to envelope her, but already shifting and changing, reforming into something unexpected. She gasped as memories spiraled around her losses, failures, but also strength, resilience, love. They spun wildly, merging into a whirling tempest. The room pulsed alive, and she felt her very essence pulling forth, a blazing fire igniting from her soul. Would she finally discover what resided in the heart of the shadows? As the turmoil enveloped her, a voice echoed through the chaos, one she had never expected. Welcome back, Mrs. Thompson. Are you ready to embrace who you've become? And will you accept the cost? Her heart raced, teetering on the edge of acceptance. Everything hinged on this moment. The shadows loomed larger than ever, but now, she felt the light building inside her like a storm waiting to break. Would she embrace the truth, no matter how painful it may be? And just then, the ground beneath her shook violently once again, but this time, she didn't know which way was up or down. As darkness clawed and tried to pull her deeper, she could barely hear the voice over the din. The answer lies within. Will you plunge deeper? Mrs. Thompson clenched the medallion, heart racing. The time to reveal the truth was at hand. But what awaited her beneath the surface? The world twisted violently, colors blurring as Mrs. Thompson plummeted inward. Each heartbeat felt like a drum echoing in the chasm of her mind. Voices screamed and whispered, all indistinguishable, merging into a chaotic symphony of fear and anticipation. Then everything stopped. An eerie silence wrapped around her like a shroud. Breaths quickening, she looked around, heart thudding like a hammer. She stood in a place that was both familiar and foreign, a room filled with memories, yet altered, distorted. It was her childhood home. The walls loomed taller, shadows clung to every corner, and the air felt charged, electric. Welcome home, the voice echoed again, softly this time. It was her mother's voice, but it felt haunting. Shadows slid across the walls, shifting and writhing like serpents. Mom. She called out, voice trembling. I am here. The figure emerged once more spectral than before, as if her body was just a projection of Mrs. Thompson's own recollections. The sorrow in her mother's eyes deepened. You must confront what lies within. What was beneath? Did she dare unearth the buried memories? Each heart-wrenching thought sent a shiver through her. But she wasn't here to cower, not now. Show me. At those words, the shadows twisted violently, swirling to form a doorway. The threshold pulsed with an unsettling light. Steeling herself, she stepped through. Suddenly, she found herself in a dimly lit kitchen, the scent of burnt sugar mixing with something metallic. A broken plate lay at her feet, shards glimmering like stars on the cold, hard floor. The dishwasher, her childhood nemesis, stood in the corner, an imposing figure now, buzzed to life eerily, lights flickering in rhythmic patterns. I hated you, she murmured, recalling countless nights where family dinners turned into arguments, where her mother stood, helpless, as the machine clanged and complained, its sounds piercing through the tension. What did you want, my love? The figure of her mother materialized beside her, ghostly fingers tracing the outline of the dishwasher. You sought perfection, but what did it cost you? The machine whirred loudly, echoing her thoughts. It felt like a beast awakening from slumber, ready to swallow her whole. Mrs. Thompson's chest tightened. Do you want to know? Her mother prompted, voice laced with pain. Do you want to know why it never worked? Trembling, she peered into the machine. Inside, darkness shifted. Memories floated like flickering apparitions, quick flashes of her childhood, laughter, tears, a shattered vase, a warm hug followed by a cold shoulder. There was her strained smile, pushed through cracked porcelain. Don't let it consume you. The apparition of her mother insisted, eyes pleading. It's a mirror of your life, everything you hide away, everything you fear facing. The shadows crept closer, as if waiting for her to falter. What if I can't bear it? She asked, feeling the lump grow in her throat. Then you remain lost forever, her mother whispered, a gentle sadness haunting her voice. You are stronger than you know. Embrace the chaos. Let it stir within you. The doubts weighed heavy on her mind, the darkness buzzing louder, threatening to drown her. But one thing resonated through the storm: brave truth. Maybe it was time to expose the shattered pieces she had hidden away. I choose to fight. She screamed, taking a step forward, eyes locked on the swirling shadows inside the dishwasher. As she reached in, the oven clock flicked to 12:01 a.m., and a piercing cry filled the air, echoing off the walls. The shadows surged, swirling in a tempest of despair and revelation, dragging her into the very abyss she feared. Will you rise from the ashes or let the ghosts consume you? The chilling query hung in the air, clinging to her like fog. What awaited in the depths of the dishwasher? The wayward memories. Or perhaps a truth she had long buried. Mrs. Thompson felt the light within flickering. Would she extinguish the fire of her spirit, or let it blaze fiercely against the darkness? With the shadows beckoning her deeper, she held her breath, hands trembling, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The kitchen erupted into chaos as Mrs. Thompson's hand reached into the darkness of the dishwasher. The shadows roared like wild beasts, trying to pull her back, but she squinted past the murky abyss, her resolve steadying with every heartbeat. She had fought hard to get here. She wasn't going to let the darkness win again. Enough! She shouted, and in that moment, she felt the medallion pulse like a war drum, resonating with her strength. The darkness wavered, cracks began to form in its swirling net. With a fierce tug, she grasped a shard that glinted in the dim light, shattered memories bursting forth like angry fireflies. See. This is you. Her mother's voice echoed, both soothing and haunting, swirling around her like a warm breeze. You must take hold of what is yours. Images exploded around her, faces of her family caught in grief, anger, and joy twisted into one sprawling tapestry. It was rich and chaotic, a symphony of their collective pain. Despite the anguish choking her, there was also a warmth that spread through her chest. These were once lost stories, her stories. Embrace the pain. Her mother's specter urged, shimmering against the darkness. This cycle must end. Mrs. Thompson pressed further into the dishwasher, her fingers closing around a glimmering object, a photo, barely recognizable, creased and torn. She yanked it out, heart racing. It was a picture of her as a young girl, her mother smiling fiercely, but other figures loomed behind them, shadows, not quite human, urging her to forget who they were. That fear had festered for years, and now, as she looked closer, she recognized the truth they held, a history she couldn't shake, a weight she had carried for too long. I won't let you drag me down anymore. Mrs. Thompson cried, her voice rising above the cacophony swirling around her. The shadowy figures shrieked in agony, their twisted faces contorting in fear as they saw her resolve. What's next, dear one? Her mother's voice floated softly, urging. Dare to see what can come after the darkness. Adrenaline surged through her, she flicked the medallion against the dark and a blinding light erupted. The kitchen was suddenly ablaze with luminescence, the shadows recoiling in terror, shrieking like banshees. Mrs. Thompson braced as the light wrapped around her like a blanket of hope, the specters of fear evaporated, leaving only the truth behind. I choose joy. She shouted, and the shards of her life flew upward, swirling around her, wrapping each tender memory in luminescence. The weight of her past lifted, broken curses dissolved with every flicker of light bouncing off the walls. Things shifted, the figures from her past transformed from haunting silhouettes into gentle souls, none of whom were lost but rather simply seeking understanding. They pulsed with light, and as their darkness was shed, they found their voices. "Thank you for finally confronting us," whispered a familiar ghost, her Aunt Eliza, who had always encouraged her to speak her truth. Mrs. Thompson smiled, feeling her heart swell. Each spirit surrounding her began to sway in a dance of release and liberation, and just like that, the shadows dissipated, and the dishwasher clattered down to a hush. It stood empty, no longer a vessel of despair but a portal for growth. The kitchen was still, and in that stillness, Mrs. Thompson felt a profound peace wash over her. "I'm sorry," she whispered, finally ready to forgive those who had shadowed her past. "I'm sorry for holding you back." Dimitri and the others, now bearing witness to this transformation, stepped cautiously towards her, disbelief etched on their faces. The spirits began to fade into soft light, each voice blending into a gentle hum, a prayer of gratitude and farewell. "Look at what you've done," Dimitri breathed, awe shining in his wide eyes. "You've freed them all." Tears fell freely from Mrs. Thompson as she turned to face her friends, filling her heart with gratitude. "We all bear a past, don't we?" She smiled, taking a deep breath. "Maybe tonight was about more than just me. It was for all of us." As she stood there, surrounded by love and hope, she would no longer fear the shadows. They were a part of her, yes, but they could not dictate who she would become. Her heart felt heavy yet light, and she clasped the medallion close. "Let us turn over a new leaf," she said softly, glancing at the dishwasher, now a ghost of memories past. "Together." And in that moment, the darkness faded away, whispered away into the night, leaving only the brightness of the dawn's promise to guide them forward. "Good night," she whispered to the spirits, a gentle nudge of closure resonating in her voice, echoing against the confined walls. "Good night," they echoed back, a steady, reverberating sound entwining her heart with theirs. As dawn broke, the kitchen sparkled with light, and with each gaze, they saw not only the power of redemption but the strength within themselves to face the light beyond. Let this be a reminder: we can break free from the chains of our past if we dare to illuminate the shadows. And with that, Mrs. Thompson closed the door behind her, boldly stepping into the rising sun, ready for the beautiful stories waiting ahead. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for our channel and be part of our journey. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and spread the love. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. How did Mrs. Thompson's journey resonate with you? What do you think is next for her? I want to hear all of it. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the word, spread the healing. Your support makes all the difference.